All right. Let's do this.
How was everyone's New Year's Eve last night?
I'm sorry. We can't ask that because it hasn't happened yet. That's weird.
What do you mean it hasn't happened? It just happened last night.
Hannah, it's literally the 1st, and we're writing this at 1 a.m. Hannah is a liar, guys. She's a hater.
I do want to say, though, can we make the Whitney Houston again?
Oh, the Pink Whitney?
Yeah.
The Whitney Houston is what I called it.
Yeah.
The Whitney Houston. Sure, I don't know how I made it because I'm pretty sure I was intoxicated when I made it.
Well, if you go back to the episode,
We told the recipe.
you did give the recipe.
In the lobster pot. Okay. Hi, I'm Hannah.
And I'm Courtney.
Join us as we delve into true crime, paranormal encounters, and all things spooky.
Grab your flashlight and get ready to wander into the darkness with us.
This is Wicked Wanderings.
Hey, Hannah.
Hey, Rob.
Hey, Courtney.
Hi, Rob.
How we doing today?
We are great. We're excited that you're coming to us with an episode.
Yes, and I just want to wish everybody a happy new year. This episode is coming out on the 1st, so I hope everyone was safe last night, got home safe and sound, and you're listening to this episode all hungover.
Partied like it was 1999.
So happy 2025, and here's to another year.
Cheers.
Cheers. So we're going to do a special episode today. We are going to do a top 50 countdown of serial killers. So I asked ChatGPT to comprise a list of the top 50 serial killers, and this is what it gave us. So we have the name, we'll tell you where they're from, give you a little summary of background, if they were captured, the trial, and where they're at today. Some key details as well.
Sounds
Excellent.
great. I'm excited.
Yeah, let's do this.
All right, so we're going to start with number 50. His name is Karl Denke, D-E-N-K-E. It's
I'm going to say Denke.
Denke from Germany. Quick summary is known as the cannibal of Zerbais. Denke murdered and cannibalized at least 30 people in the early 20th century.
Yummy.
Oh, he's starting with a cannibal, guys. You know I hate this.
Some key details. He was a respected member of his community. Denke sold human flesh disguised as pork. Ooh.
Oh, so this is a, damn it. I was say Edward Scissorhands. That's the wrong movie.
Yeah, no.
Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney
Yeah.
Todd,
Yes.
yes. His ledger contained detailed records of his murders. The capture. He was exposed in 1924 after a victim escaped, revealing Denke's crimes.
Escaping a cannibal.
Yes. And then some of the trial. He committed suicide in custody before standing trial, leaving behind limited insights into his motives.
He sounds interesting.
Potential episode.
Yeah.
If you hear something that you want to hear more about, send us some mail, guys. Let us know. We'll do a full episode.
Cousin Mark.
Cousin Mark. We got to have you on an episode, Cousin Mark. We got
We
your
really
message
do.
from Rob. You just tell us when you're available.
All right. So number 49, Hannah's going to take it. This is a case we already did.
Yes, this sounds very familiar. Larry Hall, USA. The summary is Hall is suspected of being a serial killer responsible for dozens of murders across the Midwest, primarily targeting young women in the 1980s and 1990s. The key details presented is a Civil War reenactor. Hall lured victims through his travels and is believed to have killed while passing through towns for reenactments, known for vague confessions and a history of desecrating graves. His capture was he was arrested in 1994 for the kidnapping of Jessica Roach, leading to further suspicions about his involvement in many unsolved cases. And his trial, he was convicted of kidnapping and sentenced to life imprisonment, but his suspected murder count remains unconfirmed.
Haunting.
Yeah, there's a great show on Apple TV. It's called Blackbird. It's a, 7 or 8 part series. It's really good
I
about
still
Larry
haven't
Hall.
seen that yet.
Me
'Cause I remember
neither.
Jess did this episode.
Me neither. Okay, number 48, Charles Manson.
Can I just say I'm surprised he's at 48?
Yeah, I was a little surprised
Manson's
too.
a big guy. Like
I was like, did I read from the wrong direction? Obviously, Charles Manson, obviously USA.
sorry. What'd you say, Mom, before?
I don't think it's the number of people he killed. It's the notoriety of
Yes.
the people he killed.
Yeah.
True.
definitely. That would make sense.
Sorry, Court.
His summary: Manson was the leader of the Manson family, a cult responsible for a series of brutal murders in 1969, including actress Sharon Tate. Key details: Manson didn't commit the murders personally, but directed his followers to carry out the killings as part of his delusional belief in a race war he called Helter Skelter. He was arrested in 1969 after the murder spree. Details about his trial: he was convicted of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder in 1971. Originally sentenced to death, his sentence was commuted to life in prison after California's death penalty was briefly abolished. Manson died in 2017.
Oh, I didn't realize he was dead.
I didn't realize it was so recent.
Yeah.
Well, I know. So one of his followers was like just got out of jail this year, I think it was. Also, interesting fact: Zach Bagans from Ghost Adventure,
Her boyfriend, Zach Bagans, if you're listening, please send her a DM or something.
he has like a haunted museum that he has haunted objects in, and one of them is, I believe, the television that Charles Manson and his followers had in their home. And it's just
That's kinda cool.
haunted. So
I remember these. I was very young. I remember being at the beach with my dad. Always got that Sunday paper or get a daily paper. My dad was a big newspaper guy.
to have that newspaper, now.
Right.
Yeah, and I can remember reading about them, and it was frightening. It was frightening. What year was it? 1969.
It was 69 that
was
the murders
arrested.
took place, 71 when he was convicted.
So this is all the time we were reading about the Vietnam War. There's a lot of stuff going on. Flower power. Yep, flower children. And then he had their cult out in California. It was scary.
All right, we're on to number 47. Robert Picton
Robert
from
Picton.
Canada, which we actually just covered this case.
We
Yeah.
did.
So here's a brief summary. Picton, he was a pig farmer, murdered dozens of women in Vancouver in the 1990s and early 2000s. He was charged with 27 murders, but believed to have killed about 49. And during his trial, he was sentenced to life imprisonment in 2007.
And usually they were women of the night.
And he actually just committed suicide, or he died, or some sort.
Oh, yeah.
That was this year. He
He was killed.
He was killed in
Yeah.
prison. That's what it was.
Right around the same time that Hannah did her episode.
Yes, that's correct.
We keep having fluky timing like that
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah. I don't know
Is
if
there a
it's-
correlation between men with bad hygiene and being serial killers?
Maybe.
I don't know.
We could probably make one. I believe you could make a correlation between anything, though.
Very true. I mean,
That's
how
my inner
many would you
behavior
need to
analyst.
make a correlation?
There's no definitive number. That's the thing about it, is you could just, that's why I say you could do it for anything. You could say, oh, well, these three, and then base it off of that.
But Ted Bundy was very handsome and well spoken, so maybe the theory doesn't hold water.
Probably depends on their motive for doing things, I would say.
Yeah.
All right, number 46. Hannah, you want to take this one?
Schwab. William Bonin of the USA. Known as the Freeway Killer, Bonin raped, tortured, and murdered at least 21 boys in the late 1970s. Often worked with accomplices. Oh, interesting. And he was executed in 1996. Well, I kind of want to know how he was executed.
Yeah, he's definitely one I would like to learn more about, because I don't think I know
That's
anything about him
interesting.
either.
Well, there's a new case to put on the list of cases to do.
He's burned at the stake.
Number 45, Patrick Kearney, USA. He was known as the Trash Bag Killer. He preyed on young men in California during the 1970s. He killed and dismembered at least 21 victims, disposing of them in garbage bags. And he pleaded guilty in 1978 and was sentenced to life imprisonment.
All right.
Interesting.
Number 44 is John Christie from the UK. Christie murdered at least 8 people in his London home during the 1940s and 1950s. Some of the key details: he lured victims with promises of medical assistance. He was captured and apprehended in 1953. And during the trial, he was executed by hanging the same year. Wow.
Well,
He must have had
1953.
a medical degree of some sort. Because, like, why would you offer medical assistance?
That's true.
Right?
He's definitely be another one I would be interested in.
Yeah.
You gotta remember the healthcare system was very different back then too.
In the 50s?
And he was in the
Oh,
UK,
yeah.
so
Oh,
he
yeah.
wasn't
yeah.
US.
There was no NHS or anything, I don't think. Yeah, I would look into it.
Next one, 43, Richard Chase from the USA. Also, he was known as the Vampire of Sacramento, killed 6 people in the late 1970s, drinking their blood and engaging in necrophilia.
Yum.
Fun stuff. His murders were linked to untreated schizophrenia. Okay.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Sentenced to death in 1979, but committed suicide in prison in 1980.
Would they give a death penalty to somebody who's diagnosed with schizophrenia? Isn't that would that be something that
I don't know if they can. I mean, I think
Cannot.
they can. I just think they choose not to.
Gotcha,
I don't think there's like a you can't.
The thing is, I feel like every murder has a mental disorder.
Well,
so then in
it's-
the end,
2025 now, and everybody's got some kind of mental illness going on. You could make a case for any one of us in this room if we had done something to say it was under. It's the people who say not me, Lynn. Those are the ones you gotta watch out for.
what was in that quiche, ma?
Right. 42. We have a woman, it sounds like.
Ooh.
Dorothea Puente. I hope I'm saying that right. USA. She ran a boarding house where she killed tenants to steal their benefits. Bodies of 9 victims were found in her Sacramento yard in 1988. She was convicted in 1993 and sentenced to life imprisonment.
That's
and we
pretty
love
recent.
a female serial killer
do.
around here. So
Yeah.
she's definitely also going to be on the
Well,
list.
she was
to look
motivated by
into.
money, which is almost a little more understandable than just rage.
That's true.
Being motivated, she was motivated by money. I mean, it was horrible. Don't get me wrong, but at least she was motivated because she wanted their money.
It wasn't just
At
like
least you have a
random
reason.
Right. It wasn't just like random killing just because it feels good. I think I'm a little bit more
it's not.
concerned
She wasn't
about
motivated by rage or mad at a parent or
Glad I
something.
wasn't in Sacramento in 1988.
Yeah, exactly. Wasn't quite alive. All right, number 41.
You were.
No, in 1980?
8.
Oh, 1988. Okay, yes. I was alive, but I was 2 years old. So.
He was too young for benefits. Sorry, Dorothea.
All right, number 41, Robert Henson from the USA. All right, so a quick summary. The butcher baker abducted women and hunted them in the Alaskan wilderness.
Oh,
Some of the key details are he's responsible for deaths of at least 17 women in the 1970s and 1980s. He was arrested in 1983 after a victim escaped. It seems like always if someone escapes,
You're done.
You're done.
You're toast.
Yeah. And during his trial, he was sentenced to 461 years in prison.
Oh, that's piece of cake.
Yeah, I mean, 17 women, that almost seems like not enough time, in my opinion.
Yeah,
17
exactly.
lives equates out to 461 years.
did it say how he found his victims? I mean, Alaska's not like
It just says he abducted them and hunted them. So I'm assuming it was kind of like what we were thinking about with Johnny's case, where it's like taking them to a place and then being like, run, victims.
Books on that.
We do, but it's different. Books are fantasy and this is real life.
Number 40, Beverly Allett from the UK. She was dubbed the Angel of Death. Allett was a nurse who murdered 4 children under her care in 1991.
Not the kids.
She used lethal
not the
doses.
kids, not the pets.
Used lethal doses of insulin or air to kill patients. She was sentenced to 13 life sentences in 1993.
It's interesting how we will put a higher sentence on people who hurt children than we will on, like, I mean, and I don't say that I disagree, obviously, but it's just interesting from a legal standpoint how we can say, oh, a child's life is worth more in sentencing time than an adult's.
I think because you're hoping that the adult would have some awareness of what was going on, where a child is just so vulnerable. I guess it's the vulnerable.
Yeah.
I guess that's where we are with the pets. We were talking about
That's true. Don't hurt the pets.
Yeah. You know, when the dog gets let go, we're all like, a woman was murdered, but the dog got let go. We're like, oh, good. You know,
All the scary movies, I always say, let the dog go.
yeah, don't bring a pet in.
All right, so this kind of sounds like a case that we did over the summer. Hannah, do you remember this? Kristen Gilbert. She worked for the VA
Yeah.
up in Leeds,
Right up
or
here.
Northampton,
Yeah, I did. Because
Massachusetts.
once it said nurse, I thought of her.
Yeah, the
automatically.
poison.
So didn't they call her the angel of death as well?
I would have to look at it. I haven't read the book. I did put it on my TBR, but I didn't read it. But I think it might have been something along the same lines, if not the same thing.
Yeah, she was the one that was killing the vets, right?
Yes, and I believe Jess covered that over the summer,
did.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But her motivation is she wanted there was some guy she was in love with, a security guy or something.
Hers was
come in
weird. Yeah, hers
and
was
see
weird.
her be a hero saving these
Hers
people.
was a weird
and,
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, she enjoyed killing them.
Yeah. Sicko.
Yes.
39, Dennis Nilsson, United Kingdom. He was known as the Muswell Hill murderer, and killed at least 12 men in London between 1978 and 1983. He was very busy. He often kept corpses in his home for long periods.
Oh, wow.
Gross. He was arrested after human remains were found clogging his drains.
Oh, God.
Hate when that happens.
Messy.
And he was convicted in 1983 and sentenced to life imprisonment.
I will never complain about hair in the drain ever again.
No, hair, not, skin, teeth,
Yep.
and bones. So
Yeah. Need a good plumber to clear that out.
Oh, God.
Acid.
Number 38, Otis Toole from the USA. Toole, a partner of Lucas.
Who's Lucas?
Lucas is listed below.
Oh, okay. I was like, who's Lucas?
More to come on Lucas.
Yes. So Toole, a partner of number 37, which we will talk about in a second, Lucas committed multiple murders and was known for arson and cannibalism. Courtney's favorite.
I hate cannibalism.
Confessed to killing Adam Walsh, even though the case remains controversial. He was convicted in 1980s of multiple murders and sentenced to life. He died in prison in 1996. So if you don't know, Adam Walsh is the son of John Walsh from America's Most Wanted.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So don't tell me he ate his son.
No, so this gentleman here, Toole, just confessed to killing Adam Walsh. But it seems like the case remained controversial, like he was just confessing just to say he did, and they don't know if he actually did.
My turn?
Yeah, so his partner, number 37.
All right. Henry Lee Lucas of the USA. Lucas confessed to hundreds of murders. Hundreds, oh God. But many claims remain unverified. He is known for his partnership with Otis Toole, listed above. His confession led to solving numerous cold cases, though their accuracy was questioned. He was arrested in 1983 for unlawful possession of a firearm. That's the reason why.
Such a
That'll
silly way to
getcha.
get caught, huh?
They didn't go to Steve
Nagel's College of Knowledge.
Yeah, nope. And sentenced to life in prison, but died in 2001.
Isn't that unusual for people to team up like that? You don't see that a lot.
You don't, Mama. That's a very good
They
point.
usually trust no one
Yep.
kind of mindset.
Yep. Because shit. Well, I guess that wasn't his fault, but all right.
36, Pedro Lopez, Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. I'm hoping that he committed crimes in all three because I don't love that we're just like slash his location. Known
Somewhere in
as
South America.
the Monster of the Andes. Lopez confessed to murdering over 300 girls across
Wow.
Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru in the 1970s and 80s. He targeted young girls, luring them with promises of gifts before killing them. He was arrested in Ecuador in 1980 after being caught attempting to abduct a girl. And he was convicted of 110 murders in Ecuador and released in 1998 after serving just 14 years. His current whereabouts are unknown.
Wow.
Oh my God.
So if you're going to commit a crime, do it in Ecuador, I guess.
Wow.
That's scary.
And keep your children out of Ecuador. That's
That's scary.
they had said in the 70s and 80s, and I don't have here, although now I'm interested on what his age was at the time, because potentially he could, if he was older, right, he could be deceased.
Yeah.
But if he was younger at the time, he could very much still be alive.
Yeah.
So let's say like 40
Yeah.
midlife, right? Like, yeah, that's scary.
That one's concerning.
I
Sorry
don't
about that.
like this.
Sorry about
see
that,
this.
everybody.
I just Googled Pedro Lopez, and he's 76 years old.
And they know where he is?
Nope. Currently unknown.
Oh, so he could be dead also, right?
He could be being 76 now.
Or just being a convicted murderer of many people. I can
Yeah.
imagine you have many enemies.
I can't believe he only had prison for that. Like, what?
I really want to learn more about that case just to know like what the prison system's rationale was for like, hey, 4 years will do.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry about that. Like, what was it? I have to go back in. 110 murders and was released after 14 years. I'm sorry.
14, yes.
14.
Just
14 just seems like 4 in the comparison.
All right, the next one is number 35. It's Randy Kraft from the USA. Dubbed the Scorecard Killer, Kraft is believed to have murdered at least 16 young men, though his tally may be much higher. Some of the key details: he kept a coded list of his victims and used strangulation, overdosing, or other methods to kill. He was arrested in 1983 after police discovered a body in his car.
Was he stupid?
During his trial, he was sentenced to death in 1989. And one of the legacies of Kraft is the case remains notorious for its methodical, chilling nature.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
So they still have his remains?
Sounds like it.
That reminds me of the guy. God. So this was way back in the day where these two guys were realizing they can make money off of cadavers for the medical schools.
Yeah.
And then his skeleton is in England at one of the museums because it got donated to science. All right. 34. Herbert Mullen of the USA. Mullen killed 13 people in California in the early 1970s, believing his actions would prevent catastrophic earthquakes. Oh, wow. Talk about mental health disorders.
Yeah.
So he targeted random victims using a gun and knife, often with no clear pattern. He was arrested after being caught in the act of murder. He was convicted in 1973 and sentenced to life in prison. His case is often studied for its ties to schizophrenia and delusional thinking. Schizophrenia, Mom, there you go.
There you go.
Again. 33 is actually a twofer. So we have Leonard Lake and Charles Ng. It's just NG.
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 Thank you, Hannah.
This one's just NG, and I even did some extra research on top of it, and there's no pronunciation, so I'm just going to call him NG. From USA, this duo kidnapped, tortured, and murdered at least 11 people in a remote California cabin during the 1980s. So methods were inspired by survivalist fantasies. They targeted families and videotaped some of their heinous acts.
God.
Lake was arrested for theft and committed suicide. NG was captured years later in Canada. He was sentenced to death in 1999 for multiple murders, and their crimes highlight the dangers of extremism and unchecked violent fantasies as a legacy.
Interesting. Jinx, you owe me a Coke.
Buy your own.
All right, number 32, Ronald Acala. Is that how you would say it? Acala?
Yeah.
Ronald Acala from the great country of the USA. He was dubbed the dating game killer, which I believe we just talked about this recently because there's a new show out on
Netflix.
Netflix, yep. So he was dubbed the dating game killer after appearing on the TV show The Dating Game during his killing spree. Acala was a photographer who lured victims into deadly traps. He used his charm to lure victims, often taking photographs before killing them.
Ooh.
He was convicted in 1980 for multiple murders, though investigators believe he killed many, many more. He was sentenced to death and died of natural causes in 2021. His crimes shed light on the misuse of trust and charm in predatory behavior. So I have not seen that show yet. I did start watching it.
Me too.
But I think I only got maybe 20 minutes into it and fell asleep, and then I never turned it back on.
I feel bad because I found it one day when I was looking for something to get into, and I ended up just changing it to something else. I just sometimes I feel like when they use too big of an actor or actress, I have a hard time getting into that this actually happened. I have a really hard time with the fiction version of nonfiction things. And they used one of the actresses from Glee is in there. And I was like, the acting was
Anna Kendrick, right?
It was,
Anna Kendrick,
the acting was just so cheery for what the production was about that I had a really hard time getting into it personally.
All right, 31. Karl Panzram of the USA. He was a self-confessed serial killer. Panzram claimed to have murdered 21 people and committed hundreds of crimes across the United States and abroad. Panzram's crimes included murder, arson, and assault, often driven by deep-seated hatred for humanity. He was arrested for burglary. He confessed to his broader crimes. He was executed in 1930 for the murder of a prison guard. His memoirs provide chilling insights into his psyche, becoming a key resource for understanding criminal psychology.
Interesting.
Number 30 is one many people are familiar with, the Zodiac Killer from the USA. One of America's most notorious unsolved cases, the Zodiac Killer claimed to have killed 37 people in California during the 1960s and 1970s. He targeted young couples and lone individuals, leaving cryptic letters and ciphers for the police and media. Despite extensive investigations, the Zodiac Killer was never caught, and his identity remains a mystery. His taunting communications and unsolved status have inspired books, films, and ongoing investigations.
I don't think I realized he wasn't caught.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. He's
Oh
like
my God, I don't think I realized
he's a
that.
whole rabbit hole. I'm actually shocked that I say only, like he made the list, but I'm shocked he's only at 30 just because of how big his case, their cases, we should say, right? We say his, but we don't.
We don't know.
Right. Until you have an actual person who's convicted, in my opinion, you don't know.
Right, exactly. All right, number 29, very popular one, Israel Keys, USA. Keys was a methodical and organized killer who targeted victims across the U.S., committing murders without a consistent pattern. He used kill kits hidden in various locations, choosing victims randomly, using various methods to kill. He was captured and arrested in 2012 after using a victim's credit card. During the trial, Keys confessed to 11 murders, but committed suicide in his jail cell before standing trial. And the legacy he leaves behind is his case remains open-ended, with investigators still linking him to additional crimes. We covered Israel Keys, right?
We did.
Yes.
Yep, that was a Jess one.
Early on in the podcast.
Number 28, Leonardo Cianciulli from Italy. The soap maker of Correggio. Oh my God, my Italian's really bad. Cianciulli murdered women and turned their bodies into soap and tea cakes in the 1930s. She lured victims by promising to help them with their problems, then killed them with an axe. She boiled their remains to make soap and baked their blood into cakes. Oh my God.
She was brutal.
Yeah. Relatives of a victim grew suspicious, which led them to her arrest. She was convicted of 3 murders in 1946. She was sentenced to 30 years in prison and 3 years in an asylum. Her crimes remain infamous in Italy for their grotesque nature. Wow.
Yeah, that's a doozy. 27, if you thought Hannah's Italian was bad, you're going to hear how bad my Japanese is.
Good luck with this one.
Mayuki Ishikawa.
Oh, wow. That was great.
I'm never going to say it again. From Japan. She was a Japanese midwife who killed dozens of infants in the 1940s, claiming she was helping families who could not afford to raise children. Ishikawa neglected or directly killed infants under her care. Authorities discovered at least 103 bodies, though the true number could be much higher. Police stumbled upon the crime when 2 officers discovered infant remains, which is how she was captured. And in her trial, she was sentenced to 8 years in prison. Her punishment was seen as lenient due to social attitudes about poverty. And the legacy she left behind is that it sparked debates about abortion and childcare policies in post-war Japan.
Wow.
I don't love that one at all.
No, not
that one
at all.
sits very poorly with me.
Number 26. I'm not even sure if I can attempt this.
How's your Russian, Rob?
My Russian is horrible. I'm going to need some help. Someone.
I've got Daria Nikolaevna Saltykova.
Perfect.
Call her DNS.
DNS. There we go. That's what we're going with. DNS. So known as the Salty Chica?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it says. Salty Chica.
Salty Chica.
DNS was a Russian noblewoman who tortured and murdered her serfs?
Yep.
What's a serfs?
Her servants.
Oh, her servants.
Yeah.
Okay. Murdered her servants in the 18th century, earning her reputation as one of the Russians' most infamous female killers. Some of the key details: she used extreme physical abuse to kill at least 38 female servants. Some reports suggest the number may have been higher. Complaints from the villagers eventually reached Empress Catherine of the Great, who ordered an investigation. During the trial, she was found guilty in 1768. DNS was stripped of her title and imprisoned for life in a monastery dungeon. Ooh.
That does not sound pleasant.
That sounds dark. And the legacy she leaves behind is her case highlighted the unchecked power of the Russian nobility over servants during that era.
Number 25, Mary Ann Cotton of the UK. Mary Ann Cotton, Britain's first serial killer, poisoned over 20 people, including her husbands and children. In the 19th century. Okay.
Was she Mormon?
Well, she must have had multiple husbands, is what I'm going to say.
And all of the children.
So Cotton used arsenic to murder her financial gain, cashing in on life insurance policies. The authorities grew suspicious after the death of her stepson, so that's how she was captured. Her trial, she was executed in 1873 for the murder of her stepson. Her case popularized forensic toxicology and murder investigations.
Oh, wow. That's in the 19th century. Okay, so 1873.
Number 24 is also in the UK. Amelia Dyer One of Britain's most infamous killers, Amelia Dyer, was a baby farmer responsible for the deaths of hundreds of infants in the late 90s. Why do I keep getting all the baby killers? Come on. Dyer took in unwanted babies for money and killed them to avoid expenses. Authorities discovered bodies weighted down in the Thames, executed in 1896 for her crimes, and her legacy led to stricter regulations on adoption and childcare in the UK. So I guess at least something good came of all these dying babies. That's so sad.
All right, now we're heading down to Mexico for number 23. Juana Barraza. Did I say that right?
Sure.
Cool.
Sounds good.
The little old lady killer. Juana Barraza was a Mexican serial killer who targeted elderly women.
Oh, I was hoping she was going to be an old lady killing people.
The little old lady killer, yes. Barraza posted as a social worker to gain victims' trust before strangling them. Arrested in 2006 after being caught fleeing a crime scene. During the trial, she was sentenced to 759 years in prison for killing 16 women, and her case shook Mexico City, revealing societal neglect of the elderly.
Jane Topin of the USA, a nurse turned killer, Jane Topin, known as Jolly Jane, confessed to killing at least 31 patients in Massachusetts in the late 19th century. Topin poisoned patients with morphine and atropine, taking pleasure in their suffering. Suspicion arose after multiple deaths in her care. She was declared insane and committed to an asylum for life. Her case raised awareness about unchecked power in medical professions. Huh.
Again, I mean, this sounds exactly like Kristen Gilbert.
Yeah, it does.
And it's so much closer, too, because it's in Massachusetts.
I'm going to look into that one because that one has my interest piqued.
Girl, you can't look at all of them. I want to look into some.
Well, just offer. For 21, I'm going to go back to Japan here again. Tsutomu Miyazaki?
Yeah, great.
Known as the Otaku Killer, abducted and murdered 4 young girls in Japan during the late 1980s. Miyazaki's crimes involved abduction, murder, and acts of necrophilia.
Oh, geez.
He also sent taunting letters to victims' families.
What a jerk.
He was arrested after being caught attempting to assault another child. At trial, he was executed in 2008 for his crimes. His case highlighted concerns about Japan's subculture of extreme media consumption.
All right, number 20, Charles Sabaraj. Why am I getting all the hard ones, too?
They're all getting hard.
Yeah, they are getting really hard.
I was going to make a joke at first, like, wow, you guys realize how quickly it went back USA, USA, USA. And now I'm like, phew, we're not the most effed up. There's lots of other countries in here now.
All right, for number 20, Charles Sabaraj from India, Nepal, and Thailand. It's all in that same little area. Nicknamed the Serpent for his slippery escapes. Sabaraj was a conman and serial killer who preyed on Western tourists across Asia in the 1970s. Sabaraj used his charm to befriend victims after poisoning them before robbing or killing them. After evading authorities for many, many years, he was finally arrested in Nepal in 2003. Why are you laughing?
It says for years, and he's like, many, 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 many years. Lots of many years.
You've been adding words like it was Catherine the Great. Catherine of the Great. I'm like,
He's getting tired. Leave Rob alone.
you laughed with me. That's
I'm allowed to laugh. I'm Switzerland. You leave my husband out of this.
Honey, I love you bunches, and I love that you're doing this with us.
After evading authorities for many, many years, he was finally arrested in Nepal in 2003 and sentenced to life in prison. His life-inspired books and a Netflix series, cementing his reputation as a master manipulator. I wonder what that Netflix series is called.
All right, 19. Joachim Kroll from Germany. Kroll is known as the Ruhr Cannibal, killed at least 14 people, including children, over 2 decades from the 1950s to the 1970s. Kroll strangled his victims and sometimes engaged in cannibalism, using party parts for meals.
Oh, disgusting.
He was arrested after a plumbing issue in his building.
What are they going to learn? Stop flushing the pieces.
Revealed human remains in the pipes. He was convicted of 8 murders in 1982. Kroll was sentenced to life imprisonment. He died in prison in 1991. Kroll's crimes exposed the lack of communication between police agencies investigating disappearances. Huh. Interesting.
Very interesting.
Oh, Fritz.
18. Fritz Harman of Germany. Known as the Butcher of Hanover, Fritz Harman was a German serial killer who murdered at least 24 young men and boys between 1918 and 1924. Harmon lured victims, often runaways or drifters, and killed them by biting through their throats.
Oh, God.
Earning him the nickname the Vampire of Hanover. He dismembered the bodies, disposing of them in rivers. Authorities linked him to missing persons when body parts were found in Hanover's waterways. He was convicted of 24 murders. Harmon was executed by guillotine in 1925. His gruesome crimes inspired cultural references, including characters in literature and film.
So, did he have two nicknames? The Butcher of Hanover, or was he the Vampire of Hanover?
I think we should ask the person who researched our episode today.
ChatGPT? So it looks like it's both, because according to Wikipedia, he was a German serial rapist and serial killer known as the Butcher of Hanover, the Vampire of Hanover, and the Wolfman, who committed the sexual assaults, murders, mutilation, and dismemberment of at least 24 young men and boys in the city of Hanover
So he
between
just had a lot of
1918 and 1924. Yeah, so he had a bunch of different names. Because even in his name up at the top, it has quotations around Fritz.
Oh, how do we catch these people when we don't even know their name?
Exactly. All right, moving on. Number 17, we're heading to Pakistan with Javed Iqbal. Javed Iqbal was a Pakistani serial killer who confessed to killing 100 boys in Lahore in 1998 and 1999. His crimes shocked the nation due to their scale and his methodical documentation. Iqbal lured street children to his home, where he strangled them, dismembered their bodies, and dissolved them in acid to hide evidence.
Nice.
He left writing confessions and photos of his victims. He surrendered to authorities after his confession was publicized. He was found guilty of 100 murders, and he was sentenced to be executed in the same manner as his victims. Ooh.
Yikes.
So he was executed in the same manner as his victims.
I mean, an eye for an eye mentality makes sense when you're talking about Pakistan.
So
Yes,
they
it
dismembered his body and dissolved them in acid to hide the evidence?
Yeah, to hell with the ethics.
Jeez. However, he was found dead in his cell in 2001 under suspicious circumstances. His case highlighted issues with child exploitation and homelessness in Pakistan, prompting demands for better children protection measures.
Yeah. No, that whole case was just a doozy in general. There's a lot of crap happening there.
Number 16, Louis Garavito from Colombia. Louis Garavito, known as La Bestia, the Beast, is one of the most prolific serial killers in history, responsible for the murder and torture of an estimated 138 to over 300 young boys in Colombia during the 1990s.
Wow.
Garavito targeted impoverished children, luring them with promise of gifts or money. He would torture, rape, and kill them in secluded areas. What a douche canoe. In 1999, authorities connected Garavito to the crimes using DNA evidence from a pair of glasses found at a crime scene. Garavito confessed to 138 murders and was sentenced to 1,853 years in prison, although Colombian law capped sentences at 40 years. His case exposed systemic failures in protecting vulnerable children in Colombia and led to reforms in law enforcement. I know, Court, you're going to look into law down in South America, so that's interesting. They cap at 40.
I also think it's interesting that going into this list, I expected to see a lot of like girls and young women to be the victims of most of these killers. And I feel like we're hearing boys.
We are.
Boys, men, boys. Like we're hearing a lot more. I feel like the media always makes it seem like serial killers are going after women. And we're hearing a lot more about male victims as well, which is surprising. Number 15, Dennis Rader, USA. Dennis was the BTK killer, bind, torture, kill, terrorized Kansas for decades, killing 10 people between 1974 and 1991. Rader stalked and strangled his victims, often leaving cryptic messages for police and the media. A floppy disk he had sent to the police in 2004 led to his arrest. He confessed to all murders and was sentenced to 10 consecutive life terms in 2005. Rader's case highlights the dangers of narcissism and serial killers. That's a nice way to put that. Highlights the dangers, more like the correlation.
BTK, what does that stand for?
Bind, torture, kill. We've done a lot of bonus episodes for people who are not subscribers. Bonus episodes come out for subscribers only. Hannah and I have done a lot of, when we do like serial killer trivia and things, BTK comes up a lot. Because we really, the two of us, we were like, we don't really know too much about him. And then we ended up having to look up, we want to do an episode on him. But I'm surprised he's not further down the list too.
All right, number 14, Bella Guinness from the USA. Bella, known as the Black Widow of Laporte, was a Norwegian immigrant who lured men to her Indiana farm under the guise of marriage, only to kill them for financial gain. She poisoned or bludgeoned her victims, burying their bodies on her farm. After a suspicious fire in 1908, authorities unearthed over 40 bodies on her property. She's believed to have faked her death in the fire, and her ultimate fate remains unknown. She is considered one of America's earliest and deadliest female serial killers.
Ooh.
There you go, Hannah. You said you want to research some. I know you love a good female serial killer.
Okay, Belle, I see you. Oh, number 13, Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer, the Milwaukee cannibal, is infamous for his gruesome killings of 17 young men between 1978 and 1991. His case shocked the world due to his acts of necrophilia and cannibalism. Dahmer drugged, strangled, and dismembered his victims, often keeping body parts as trophies. He was arrested in 1991 when a victim escaped, of course, and alerted police. They found human remains in his apartment. Sentenced to life in prison, Dahmer was killed by a fellow inmate in 1994. His story has been the subject of extensive media coverage, including films and series.
So many cannibals on this list.
There's
Can I
a
just tell you, I
lot of
have one
cannibals.
true crime ick, and it's always cannibals. Number 12, Richard Ramirez, USA. Known as the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez terrorized California in the 1980s with a series of brutal home invasions, murders, and sexual assaults. Ramirez's crimes included a mix of stabbing, shooting, and bludgeoning. He also performed satanic rituals at some crime scenes.
Ooh.
He was identified through a fingerprint left at a crime scene. A group of citizens recognized and subdued him before the police arrived. He was convicted of 13 murders. Ramirez was sentenced to death in 1989. He died of cancer in 2013 while on death row. The cultural impact of his case became one of the most sensationalized in true crime history, leading to documentaries and books. Side note, I've never heard of him.
I've never heard of him
Yeah.
either.
Which is interesting for being USA and the fact that we're as all into true crime as we are and haven't heard of him.
Yeah.
Definitely another one to dig into.
All right, number 11, Albert Fish, USA. Albert Fish, also known as the Gray Man or the Brooklyn Vampire. Ooh, Hannah, you ever heard of this one? He was a sadistic child killer and cannibal. Active in the early 20th century, his crimes are considered some of the most grotesque in American history.
Fuck the cannibals.
Fish targeted children, often luring them with promises of work or gifts, or maybe cookies because he had a little white van. He confessed to molesting over 400 children and murdering several. His killing of Grace Budd in 1928 shook the nation when he sent a letter to her family detailing the crime. He was arrested in 1934, convicted, and executed in the electric chair in 1936.
That's a quick turnaround.
Fish remains a symbol of extreme criminal depravity.
Only so fitting. Hannah.
Really?
Well, before we get to that, let's take a quick break and hear from our sponsors.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
A sincere expression of gratitude to our esteemed patrons for their generous monthly contributions. Cousin Mark and Ashling,
Karen and Kate.
Stephanie and Courtney.
Lynn and Margie.
You too can become a valued patron and unlock a realm of exclusive content by supporting our mission for as little as $3 a month. Your contributions sustain our commitment to delivering high-quality content. Visit wickedwanderingspodcast.com and click on the support tab to join the ranks of our dedicated patrons. Thank you for considering this opportunity to deepen your engagement with Wicked Wanderings. Your support is paramount in enabling us to continue our journey into the realms of mystery and true crime.
All right, and we're back for the top 10. We are on the final top 10. Are you girls ready?
I am ready.
Excellent. All right, Hannah, why don't you take this one? Because one, it's your turn, and two, it's one of your favorite people.
Okay.
Besides the two of us.
He's not my favorite person. I just find him
Oh, here
fascinating.
she goes.
The
I
most-
don't condone what he did. I just think he's interesting from a behavioral standpoint. Fast forward. Go ahead.
All right, Hannah, here you go.
Free t-shirt for whoever can guess. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy is one of America's most infamous serial killers, known for his charm and intelligence. He confessed to killing 30 women in the 1970s, though the true number may be higher. Bundy often lured victims by feigning injury or pretending to need help. He would then abduct, assault, and kill them. Bundy escaped custody twice, committing more murders during his brief periods of freedom. His trial was one of the first to be nationally televised, with Bundy serving as his own lawyer. He was executed in 1989. Bundy's case has been studied extensively, inspiring film, books, and documentaries.
I don't even think we need to discuss number 10, right? Because we've done it so many times.
We did 3 episodes on Bundy.
I think it might have been 4. Okay, moving on. Number 9, Ed Gein, USA. Fun fact, I did a project on him in high school.
Oh, wow.
History project.
Okay, it's kind of weird how everything falls together.
It is kind of weird. Ed Gein, known as the Butcher of Plainfield, inspired several fictional villains, including Norman Bates in Psycho and Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Though only convicted of 2 murders, Gein's gruesome actions horrified the nation. Gein exhumed corpses from cemeteries and created items from their remains, including lampshades and clothing. He was diagnosed with schizophrenia. Gein was deemed unfit for trial initially and later confined to a mental institution. His crimes cemented his place in popular culture as a symbol of horror.
I've been fascinated by that one.
Yeah, it's something about the like, he wasn't really hurting. I mean, for me, it's like a moral thing where like he wasn't killing people. He was just like digging up their bodies and using them for stuff, which I guess is a little bit better. He didn't really want to deal with all the blood and gore and stuff. I guess he just wanted the body parts. I don't know.
All right, number 8, John Wayne Gacy from the USA. John Wayne Gacy, known as the Killer Clown, was convicted of murdering 33 young men and boys in Illinois during the 1970s. Gacy lured his victims with promise of work or entertainment, often dressed as a clown persona, Pogo. Grace sexually assaulted and strangled his victims before burying most of them in a crawl space in his home.
Great.
A missing persons investigation led police to Gacy, where they discovered remains in his home. Gacy was executed by lethal injection in 1994, and his clown persona was influenced countless horror stories and films.
I hate a clown.
I'm not a fan of clowns.
Cannibals
either.
and clowns are my 2 like horror oddity things, and I'm like, absolutely not. At least he didn't eat people dressed like a clown, I guess.
H.H. Holmes. Oh, this is a good one. H.H. Holmes, often dubbed America's first serial killer, operated in the late 19th century. He is infamous for his murder castle, a building he designed with hidden rooms and traps to kill victims during the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. Holmes lured victims to his hotel where they were subjected to torture or murder. Initially arrested for insurance fraud, authorities uncovered evidence of multiple murders. Holmes confessed to 27 murders, though the exact number of victims remains unknown. He was executed in 1896. His story has inspired books and films, including The Devil in the White City.
We're really getting down here now. Number 6, Harold Shipman, UK. Dr. Harold Shipman, also known as Dr. Death, is one of the most prolific serial killers in history. Shipman, a respected general practitioner in England, murdered an estimated 250 patients over 2 decades. Not a good doctor to be going to. Shipman injected his mostly elderly victims with lethal doses of diamorphine. The unusually high death rate among his patients raised suspicions, leading to investigations. A forged will intended to benefit Shipman exposed his actions. Shipman was convicted of 15 murders in 2000 and sentenced to life imprisonment. He hanged himself in prison in 2004.
Wow.
His crimes prompted significant changes in medical oversight in the UK. One should really hope.
Oh, this is a good one, Rob.
Number 5, Elizabeth Bathory from Hungary. Elizabeth Bathory, the Blood Countess, is considered one of history's most prolific female killers. Accused of torturing and killing hundreds of young women in the 16th century, Bathory's crimes became infamous for their alleged brutality. Now, here's something new. Myths versus reality. Legends claims she bathed in blood of virgins to retain her youth, though historians debate the accuracy of these tales. During the trial, evidence from over 300 witnesses led to her being walled up in her castle, where she died in 1614. And the legacy that she left. Bathory's story inspired Gothic horror tales and remains a symbol of excessive cruelty.
Andrei Chikatilo from Russia, number 4. Known as the Rostov Ripper, Andrei was convicted of murdering 52 people between 1978 and 1990 in the Soviet Union. His victims ranged from children to young adults, and he often lured them with promises of money or gifts. Always some money and gifts.
Always.
His crimes involved sexual assault, stabbing, and mutilation. Andrei claimed to derive sexual gratification from the act of murder. His capture, flawed investigations in Soviet bureaucracy, delayed his capture until DNA evidence linked him to the crimes. Andrei was executed in 1994 after a high-profile trial.
Wow. Down to the final 3.
The final 3.
Number 3, Eileen Wuornos, USA. Eileen, a rare example of a female serial killer, murdered 7 men in Florida between 1989 and 1990. She claimed the killings were in self-defense, stating her victims had attempted to assault her during her time as a sex worker. Eileen shot her victims at close range and often stole their belongings. Her confession and a lack of evidence supporting her self-defense claim led to her conviction and eventual execution in 2002. Wuornos' life story inspired the 2003 film Monster, earning Charlize Theron an Academy Award.
Yeah, I've seen that movie.
I didn't know about that.
Interesting.
All right, so number 2, and we've mentioned her many times on this list already, and she's a local for us, Kristen Gilbert. She's an American serial killer and a former nurse who was convicted of 4 murders and 2 attempted murders of patients admitted into the Veteran Affairs Medical Center, VA, in Northampton, Massachusetts. She induced cardiac arrest in patients by injecting their IV bags with lethal doses of epinephrine, commonly known as adrenaline, which is an untraceable heart stimulant. She would then respond to the coded emergency, often resuscitating the patients herself. Prosecutors said Gilbert was on duty for about half of the 350 deaths that occurred in the hospital from when she started working there in 1989, and that the odds of this is merely being a coincidence were 1 in 100 million. However, her only confirmed victims were Stanley Yagodowski, Henry Houdin, Kenneth Cudden, and Edward Skewer.
But probably more.
Sorry if I mispronounced any of those. But she was convicted of life sentence without parole, plus 20 years. She is still currently incarcerated. And she was dubbed the Angel of Death, so I was right on that.
Yeah. Good memory.
All right, so we have come down from 50 to number 2 on this list of serial killers across the world. Miss Hannah, would you like to take number 1?
I would love to.
All right, and number 1 is
Jack the Ripper.
All right.
Which is fitting. Very fitting. So Jack the Ripper terrorized London's Whitechapel district in 1888. The killer targeted women, primarily sex workers, mutilating their bodies with surgical precision. 5 victims, Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly, are attributed to him, though some believe the true number may be higher. Victims were found with their throats slashed and bodies mutilated post-mortem, suggesting a knowledge of anatomy. His crimes generated widespread media coverage and instilled fear, but the identity of Jack the Ripper remains one of history's greatest mysteries. The case led to advancements in forensic science and police procedures, though no suspect was conclusively identified.
Wow.
This was fun.
That was quite
a
the
really
list.
good list.
Yes.
Thank you, Rob, for coming up with this episode idea.
Yes, thank
Yes, and thank you, ChatGPT, for compiling that number. We might have switched it around a little bit, but yeah, overall pretty good. If you think it needs to be in a different order, or if you would have added someone different or taken someone off, let us know. You can send us a text. The link is down in the show notes.
Thank you, Wonders.
Thanks, Wonders.
Thank you. Happy New Year. We'll see you next week.
Bye. Thanks for listening today. Wicked Wanderings is hosted by me, Hannah.
And co-hosted by me, Courtney.
And it's produced by Rob Fitzpatrick.
Music by Sasha M.
If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to leave a rating and review, and be sure to follow on all socials. You can find the links down in the show notes. If you're looking for some really cozy t-shirts or hoodies, head over to the merch store. Thank you for being a part of the Wicked Wanderings community. We appreciate every one of you. Stay curious, keep exploring, and always remember to keep on wandering. Attention, cryptid enthusiasts and Bigfoot believers. Unleash your inner legend with our brand new Bigfoot t-shirt, now available just $19.95 plus shipping. This tee is everything you've ever wanted. Soft, lightweight, and designed with the perfect amount of stretch for maximum comfort. Made from 100% combed and ring-spun cotton, it's pre-shrunk to keep its flattering fit and durable enough to withstand your wildest adventures. With its high-quality construction and iconic design, this shirt is a must-have for anyone who's ready to join the hunt in style. Sizes are available for everyone, so don't wait to grab yours today. Head to the link in the show notes to snag your new favorite shirt and rep your Bigfoot pride wherever you go.